Alright, let's talk about a few Altium extras. Altium has built-in editing capabilities with filters. Let's look at some of these filters. Currently I have my PCB and maybe I want to change the size where it says input here, right? I look at that input and I look at the properties and I say, wow, it's really physically bigger than I want. I can come up here and tell what I want it to be, say 40 mils tall, right? And 7 mils for the thickness of my trace. And I made that smaller. That works fine for one. What if I want to do this comment, and this comment all at the same time? Well, let's take a look. If I come to the bottom right where it says PCB, there's two things I want to open. My PCB filter and my PCB inspector. So I'm going to open those two. Here they are over here, filter and inspector. And in my filter I want to type something in. Now you can use helper to figure out what it is you want to type to filter the type of data that you want. And you can look, here's object type checks. We can look and see. Oop, here's the one we want, is comment. I want a comment, right? I want it to say is comment. So I do this and say OK. It types is comment because that's what I want, these comments. When I filter it, here's the actions. Orders or objects passing the filter, I can select them, zoom them. Objects not passing the filter, deselect. So I'm going to tell it, yeah, that's great, that's what I want. Apply. And what did we get here? Well, there's my 3 comments. All 3 comments are selected. So if we go to PCB Inspector, what do I see? Text height. 60 mils. I want 40 mils. Text width. 10 mils. I want 7 mils. Hit enter. And now look, all 3 of my comments are now small. That's great. That's 3 objects. This saved me a little bit, but let's do another one here. This says is comment. What if I want designators? I could type is. When I put the D in, it's going to bring up every possibility that is. Is datum dimension, is designator, right? Is dimension. Well, I want is designator. Apply. If I look now, all my designators are selected. Here's P1, C1, C2, P3. They're all selected. Let's go to our PCB inspector. Same thing, I want to make them smaller. 40 by 7. But I can do other things too. All the properties are displayed here from my designators. What if I wanted to hide them all? I can click hide. You'll see now my board shows no designators. I have them all hidden. I can unhide them all at the same time. Once I'm happy with it, I can come down here and say clear. I've cleared out my selections and I can see I've shrunk all my text, made it a little bit smaller. It's a very handy tool. That's PCB Inspector, PCB Filter. It's also possible when you're on your schematic. Down here at the bottom right where it says schematic, I have schematic filter, schematic inspector. I can do the same thing. I can do other functions like, well, let's say I hover over this resistor and right click. I can tell it find similar objects. And when I'm finding the similar objects, how do I want to designate that they're similar? Well, maybe I want to use the same symbol reference. I want to say yes, I want all of them that are the same, RES1. Remember, that's where it came from the library. I can say select all those. Hit apply. OK. And here we are. That's the 3 resistors that I selected that came out of that library. Now remember, my surface mount 50 ohm resistor was RES3, so it doesn't get selected. Just another function you can do. I'm going to hit clear. Another function you can do with your filters. Alright, now let's talk about rooms. I'm going to bring up a schematic here. This schematic is a schematic of an audio mixer. And audio mixers usually have several inputs. This one has 8 inputs for 8 microphones or 8 guitars or whatever you're using. And you'll see as I look at my schematic here, if I hover over the top of my green schematic in my top level sheet, it kind of shows me a small picture of the schematic that we're referring to. And up here in the instructions for this sheet, it says repeat channel in 8 times. I want to repeat that channel in 8 times. So here's the schematic. This is the schematic of my channel in. Here's the stereo jack in. Here's the XLR low impedance balanced input. You see I have a gain select. Here's a variable gain. Here's tone controls. Over here's where I can select if I want to move it to the left channel, right channel, or balance in the middle. Anyways, this is an entire channel coming in. I don't want to draw this 8 times, right? It's going to be a pain if I do, so I want to save time. I'm going to use this function and say, look, repeat that one 8 times, and here it is. Now after I do that, and then I update it to the PCB, each channel is going to be in its own room. So let's see what that looks like. Look down here, channel in 1, channel in 2, channel in 3, channel in 4. You'll see all the parts in there. These are all channel inputs, and they've all been built from Altium in their own room. So I'm going to highlight a room. I'll left mouse click because I want to move it, and I'll tell it yes, I want to move it, and I'll drag this room over. Let's see, I'll put it right up. Let's see, I'll rotate it and stick it up here. What I'm doing for an example here is not going to be a great design, but just an example of how I can change things. So I've moved my room. Now I'm going to highlight my room and change the shape of my room. Maybe I'll come up here and shrink my room down a little bit. Make it fit right there. Okay. Now you'll see these parts turned green. They're green because there's a violation, and the violation in this case is they are not in their rooms. The parts have been moved out of their rooms. So let's move some parts. I'll draw a box around these. I'm going to drag them down here somewhere and put them in the room over here. Here's some more parts. I'll draw another box. Move a few more parts. And just a few more parts here. I'll take these parts. Maybe I'll even rotate them. Stick them over here. So now you see I've changed the parts in my room, and I've changed the shape of my room. Now let's see some of the power we can do with rooms. You know I have 8 channels, and I would have to do this with every room independently. You can move individual parts too, by the way. Just put your mouse on a single part, left click, drag the part around. So let's come up here and look. What else can I do? Well, let's look. We have design, rooms, and under design rooms I have copy room formats. That's a very important thing. Let's click on it. When I click on it, I get a large X. This large X on my pointer is telling me to point to my source. So I'm going to point to my source room and click. Now it's asking me point to the destination room. Where do I want to copy it to? I want to copy it to channel in 2. And here's my options. Copy the component placement? Yes. Copy designator and comment formatting? Yes. Copy routed nets? Well, I haven't routed any nets yet. If I had routed all the nets in the first room, it would copy that to the second room. And I'll show you an example. We'll look at it. Copy room size and shape, of course. I'm going to tell it OK. Now it says updated 51 components in one room. Let's just take a look at that. Here's my first room. I'm going to just drag it over a little bit farther away here. Here's my second room, the one I copied everything to. Let's drag it over. Look at that. It actually did exactly what I asked it to do. It changed the room shape. It changed all the parts placements. It made them copy. Now if I wanted to, I can continue. I could continue to say, take this source and make this change, make this change, make this change. It's actually possible to make them all change at the same time. So I could just take one source and tell it I want all the rooms to look like this. Very powerful tool. Now after you place the parts, You'll see all the channels lined up. Here they are, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. They're all lined up. They're not routed yet. So I might want to go and route one channel. And you can do that. You can come up here to auto route and say auto route just that room. And after I auto route that room and I'm happy with it, I can go back to my rooms function and tell it copy that routing to these other channels. When you do, it'll look like this. Here's channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and look how the routing is exactly the same. Here's C7 on channel 1. You'll see the top, a little dip right by C7. Here's channel 2, same trace with a dip. Channel 3, same trace. So you can see that it copies the formats, which means that each channel will be an exact copy and exactly the same. Another powerful tool. Let's look at one more thing here. Let's say I have this room with all these parts in it, and I move it up here, and I'm going to click and get rid of the room. I'm going to show you another function. I just highlight the room, hit delete, the room designator goes away. Now look at these parts. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's say these parts are staggered. That one's staggered. Whoops, I didn't get the part. This one's staggered. There's our little amp. They're all kind of staggered at different places. You'll see the spacing is not the same. I'll leave that one spaced way up here. I'll cram this one really close and cram this one really close. So I want to change that. I want to have a fast way to align all these components. Well, first let me draw a box around them to select them. I'm going to select all those parts. Now up in the top, you'll see this box that says Alignment Tools. When I open my alignment tools, I have a lot of possibilities. One thing I can tell it with this little tool right here, align components by the left edges, and move them all to the left so that they're equal. Look, all my parts move to the left. They're all equal now. I can come back to my alignment tools and say, alright, that was good. I want to make the vertical spacing of all my components equal, so some aren't crammed up and big spaces left elsewhere. Let's click that one. There we go. I've made all my spacing equal. I can come up here and say I need more space, so let's decrease the vertical spacing, and it'll shrink them. This is another powerful tool to use on your PCB because you can align things, space things, move things, all with the alignment tool. Another function in the Altium Designer that's been very handy and very useful. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps.